The views and opinions on today's show are those of the individual speaking and do not represent the Enriched Nurse, the Oregon Nurses Association, Providence Medford Medical Center, Asante, or Rogue Regional Medical Center. Today, get the inside scoop on a hospital intentionally running their nurses short, refusing to pay extra shift incentives, suing the Oregon Nurses Association, ignoring the staffing law, facing almost $1 million in state staffing fines, plus local perspectives on the nurse who diverted fentanyl and is currently on trial for 44 counts of second-degree assault. Our wide-ranging interview covers how nurses are pushing back against mistrust, staffing issues, and hostility in the work environment, including what we can win when we stick together.
Welcome to the Enriched Nurse with your host, Dan Richmond. Enrich your personal finances, nursing career, and life.
Today's episode is part 2 of my interview with Oregon Nurses Association board members and fellow Southern Oregon nurses Fred Katz and Breanna Zabel. They are also the chairs of their respective local bargaining units and each work at the 2 major hospitals in Southern Oregon. You can listen to part 1 of the interview separately, episode 19. The link is in the show notes. It covered board service and also the contested statewide ONA election. Let's dive in. All right, well, moving away from board service and the election. Oof. So we had a multi-hospital strike. There's been a lot of strife in the last few years, well, several years, it seems like, for nursing in general. But
yes.
And locally, we have not been immune. But Breanna and I helped organize, one of the largest strikes in Oregon healthcare history.
Yes.
Several Providence facilities, thousands of ONA members and nurses across the entire state. Breanna, since returning to work from that multi-hospital strike almost a year ago now, what has been an unexpected result from it?
The unexpected result, I feel that coming back, nurses, at least what I'm seeing, is they're more confident in they're more confident with the contract and like enforcing the contract. I've really promoted or really wanted to educate our members on the contract, but they're enforcing it, and it's cool to like see that where they're coming up to me and instead of being like, is this wrong? They're coming up to me and like, so I read this in the contract. Does this go to my problem? And that's actually huge. And also I think, we have we have been repairing our, relationship with Providence admin, but we're always a work in progress. And I would say that, and I still do feel like we are closer than we were, but I think, Dan, you and I did a lot of that work, getting people
when
out
I
on the
visited
strike line.
It seemed you two were pretty active.
Yeah.
By the time we got to the line, I was pretty well burned out.
Yeah.
So I took the opportunity
You were in there.
to spend some time with family. And, Breanna spent more time on the line than myself. And
Every day.
And it was pretty impressive to see how many nurses really stepped up.
Yeah.
And I think locally especially kind of defied the odds.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Still very proud of that.
Yeah, and I would definitely agree that one result I've certainly noticed was more engagement from nurses and taking more ownership of their union, which is powerful. And that's a good thing.
That's the word. Yeah, ownership. Truly. Wow.
It is
something that was so hard, it seemed like, to get before.
Yes.
Well, I think it's interesting when you have a good contract and you've got an administration that, for the most part, honors it. There becomes like this. What am I looking for? What word is it? Like, people just get very lax.
Yeah.
They just take it for granted that, that's what they pay their union dues for. And they forget, they're the union. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
They're the ones responsible. Yeah. I might have my signature on the contract, but every single one of you in the bargaining unit, you have got to be the people who say, hey, hold on a second. My contract says something different. Mm-hmm. You're the enforcers.
Yes, that is. Yeah. So I will say that we own that. And one thing that I think actually has helped enforce the contract is I say things like, we were on strike for 46 days for this contract. You need to enforce it. We fought really hard for this.
Yeah.
Enforce it. Light goes on, like, you're right. I mean, we went without pay for, longer than 46 days, but.
Yeah, it's interesting. Fred and I did some rounding at Rogue, I think last spring.
Back when we were allowed in the building.
Yeah, it was shortly after our strike. But I do remember Fred just mentioning it felt really hard to get the nurses engaged, and I think everybody just had a little too much. And that seems to not quite be the case anymore at your hospital, Fred. And I think people are starting to see the importance of understanding and enforcing the contract. But so correct me if I'm wrong, but you were going to be negotiating this summer a new contract at Rogue.
Maybe.
Oh.
But your contract expires, right?
It expires September 30th.
Okay. So end of next summer, you guys should be starting midsummer, starting negotiating.
No, I have a different perspective. I expect a new contract by September 30th.
Or
that's my...
So you would start negotiating in summer, though?
Yeah. That's my deadline for, like, if we don't get it done, we're following your lead.
Oh, sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe I'm not articulating my question right.
Okay.
You start negotiating for a new contract. Like your contract expires September 30th.
We hope to be in negotiations like we have traditionally been for 2-3 months prior to the end of the contract.
Normal. Like you hope the normal process.
The way we've been doing since 1990. The normal thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, so there has been a lot of strike activity, even locally. And I've been kind of surprised at some of the news I've seen coming out locally about the organization you work for. So, I think you just kind of implied the answer to this, but what kind of negotiations are you anticipating? And are you surprised that the strike activity hasn't seemed to be deterring some organizations? Because, this has been like record strike activity in my lifetime.
Oh, yeah.
I anticipate a very difficult bargaining session. I think our team is willing to be reasonable, but already the hospital is displaying some tactics that are unacceptable, and they are already in breach of our contract, although they'll argue that they're not. So we just go through the grievance process. We're no longer in a place like we were with previous administrations, and I've done 4 contracts, and we've always been able to kind of work through. We don't always agree, and we don't always get everything we want. But we get somewhere, and then we'll all go back and agree that it's time to simmer down and get back to excellent patient care. That's what we're all here for. I don't feel that this administration has that same viewpoint. Unfortunately for patient care and doctors and nurses and everybody involved.
Yeah, locally we've had quite a few newsworthy stories, not just from that Providence strike. We've made national news after a local rogue ICU nurse was diverting fentanyl.
Yeah.
And that happened a few years ago now.
I think we're going on 3 years ago now.
The fallout from that locally, I think, has been immense for patients, the amount of patients who were impacted. I'm sure Breanna and I have been taking care of patients that were impacted by that.
Yeah.
And we're at the facility across town. So I'm curious what your thoughts are about that and how it's impacted labor relations.
I'm sure I'm not supposed to say anything, but nobody ever told me directly that there's a gag order on my commentary, so I'm just going to go for it. I think it's really unfortunate that a nurse who was struggling with addiction didn't check themselves and just temporarily surrender their license and get help, because the board allows us to do that. Mm-hmm. They recognize that we're human beings, and sometimes we're in a place where we just go down the wrong road and we're struggling. And
the state licensing board.
The state licensing board, most facilities would allow a nurse to surrender for the moment, get help, and get supervised return to work. And that did not happen. That nurse was in that ICU during COVID. watching, that was really I have several friends in ICU, and that was really a traumatizing experience for those nurses. I don't know if that impact where she landed as a human being or not, and I'm not making excuses for that individual. I mean, we have to take responsibility. What I do know is it took a long time. It's still being talked about in the community. For a long time, patients would have their families bring them water in bottles. They didn't want to drink our water because there was this misunderstanding of, they had heard that it came from water. The hospital's water had a contaminant. They didn't understand
mistrust.
And mistrust.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we heard about it over at Providence.
It was
I'm
difficult.
not going over there because
Yeah.
of the nurse. Yeah.
It's, like anybody who's ever done any kind of sales or customer service, you could do 100 things right, and a couple people will tell their friends, but you do something wrong, and everyone's going to know about it, and they're going to just have their eyes on you.
Yeah, this was a pretty major issue.
It's a major,
The CDC was brought in, right, to investigate infections, and the fallout was quite immense, right? It resulted in a lot of management turnover and leadership changes.
The fallout was catastrophic.
I mean, not just for the patients who were directly impacted.
People were held responsible all the way to the top.
Yeah.
There's still ongoing litigation and
there is, and there is a trial coming. Around the same time, we'll be finishing our contract, maybe.
Yeah, I've seen a little bit about the trial of the nurse themselves.
I mean, you've got to wonder, and this is a criminal trial, you've got to wonder how that's going to turn out. What's also painful is, we've got super dedicated nurses in that ICU.
Of course.
They're excellent people. And, they've got to live with that rep. They've got to,
It takes a long time to
recover. It's a real morale destroying moment. And then, of course, the hospital had to react to, how did this happen? Could it have been prevented? We did, from what I understand, the hospital did mysteriously, it was like a mystery. And then they kind of started figuring, they were able to put some patterns together, and suddenly it clicked and they figured it out. And then the whole thing, they went immediate. They didn't brush it under the rug. They went open with it and just said, we want to move forward and do the right thing, from here on out. And so as soon as it really was understood, and I won't go into those details, it was over.
Yeah, one thing I've noticed, I mean, that's a pretty extreme example of a nurse doing harm. Obviously complicated circumstances, sound like it had to do with a substance abuse issue and diversion. But I've seen other nurses recently through social media. It's what I noticed is it seems like social media rewards toxicity, outrage, extreme positions. And so kind of building on, previously I felt like talking trash or saying bad things about patients, family members, right. The actual direct care work we did was off limits. It seems to not be off limits anymore. Just in general, in the current political environment, just with the current social media environment, I see some people who claim to be nurses or identify themselves as nurses saying some pretty awful things, including getting a couple nurses getting fired recently for saying they weren't going to treat people or administer anesthesia based on their political beliefs.
Yeah. And their job, right?
And so my impression is, they had to surrender licenses, got fired.
Yeah.
But I'm just curious. One thing that concerns me, especially looking back to COVID, seeing some of the strife we saw here locally and dealing with angry community members accusing us of murdering people or all kinds of bad things while we were trying to do our jobs. I'm just curious your thoughts and whether you think there's potentially growing animosity or mistrust of nurses, not just in the community locally, but nationally as well.
It is challenging. And we do live in this world now where we are more and more maybe there's a design to pit us against each other and to do a lot less listening and a lot more finger pointing. And it's just, there's more incivility.
I'm curious, Breanna, your thoughts on this too. What you see on social media, it has a way of amplifying extreme, outrageous, and frankly, not even real. A lot of what you see on social media is not real, but now with AI generated content,
now we don't even know.
Seeing things that look more real than they've ever looked before.
Are you not entertained?
Not actually real. And getting rewarded for that. And I would agree. My experience hasn't, in my work, I know there's these underlying tones of mistrust, but I'm kind of curious if that's something that concerns you, especially in your leadership work.
I think we deal with the mistrust daily, and I think I deal with it in a leadership level because there can be distrust of the union,
right?
But in regards to the nursing side or the healthcare side, right. I think what we're seeing is frustration and fear around the healthcare system as a whole. And sometimes that frustration can get misdirected at nurses because we're the most visible part of care, right? We're the first line and the last line, really. I have a shirt that says that, actually. That's funny. Nurses are still one of the most trusted professions, but people are worried about access to care, which I'll talk about that more later. Long wait times, cost, where patients are losing health insurance and they're losing it because they can't afford it anymore, right? When systems don't work the way people expect them to, it's easy to look for someone to blame. And we always have and will continue to be the ones to be blamed, unfortunately. And so that's why transparency matters so much, I will say, especially in a leadership. But nurses are, and I want this really clear, nurses are accountable professionals. But we're also working within systems that don't often give the resources or staffing that we need. And so helping the public understand the difference between, our individual accountability and systemic failure, right, is critical. And that's not to avoid responsibility, but to make sure solutions are aimed where they actually belong. Because, as we all know, mistakes can be made. We are an accountable profession. We report our mistakes. We have to. We own it. Yeah. And although it is getting scarier and scarier as far as because of the criminal actions that are taken on a lot of nurses, that it wasn't like that before, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So
we both taught. We had unlicensed people studying hard and making sacrifices and wanting to go into the profession. And I remember talking about this in post-conference. This is when the students come off the floor and they're reviewing what went well in their day and what they want to do better and what they want to focus on. And we start to discuss, the patient care aspects and so on and so forth. But in just discussing the profession with those young people, my advice was always to own it. You have to own your stuff. That's the beginning.
You can't have it. No ego.
Yeah. You have to just own it. And then you have to be how can I do this better? So to me, everybody from the beginner, the student, through the beginner, through the expert, has to own it. And the managers have to own the responsibility of mentorship to make things better. Or they have to own when their staff is incredibly under duress. I mean, that's part of what they have to own because they took the role of managing.
Right. But what we're seeing is less accountability from the system side.
But do you think that's driven by greater fear around admitting a mistake?
Because from the hospital side, yes.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have a system that allows you to grow.
Yes, and that is what I think we used to have. Like, and when I say we, I say nursing.
Yeah.
I think that was basically the culture of it, right? That was, you admit your mistakes, you weren't going to prison, or you weren't going to be criminally tried for a mistake that you made, because it is a practice of medicine. But I think what we're seeing now is that is fear from the nurses, but also it is no longer that kind of accountability. That's not the system we're working with. In some areas, we're not working with that accountability system where it feels safe.
I'm going to also throw something in and this is theoretical. I'm sure there's some research going on around this. I think the electronic medical record and setting things up to give you like little green check marks when the work is done while it organizes for some people their day, it prevents critical thinking and like free, like rechecking what you're doing, because you rely on like this little symbolic, all green check marks, and you're like, I did a great job.
But the green check mark,
is that the measure, or is there something that really needed to be accomplished that doesn't have a green check mark that goes with
like
it?
Nursing to the electronic medical record, or the kind
checking boxes,
EMR driven.
And remember, we are not
versus the patient.
We are professionals, and as professionals, we have a higher standard and expectations of ourselves. And so like green check marks are great. It's sort of like following a recipe the first time you make cookies, but then once you kind of get like how sugar combines, like once you learn the mechanisms, you should be able to like take over and close the book and know how to make it come out right.
And then add some special stuff to it.
Chocolate chip
thinking
cookie.
better. Yeah.
I think I got off topic. Maybe.
Well, yeah, I mean,
like this accountability thing, and then
I think we're talking about multiple potential issues. Yeah, I think for years, we would, like ANA would send out the email, everyone give yourselves a pat on the back. We're the most trusted profession.
Right.
And I guess what I'm getting at is I see some cracks in that. There's been some high profile instances.
Sure.
It's having some far reaching consequences, cost pressures, maybe the illusion of social media or misinformation and whatnot. And my experience,
maybe being undermined as a profession.
Yeah, and my experience
because we're strong.
Most nurses
we're trusted.
Absolutely. Tend to sacrifice themselves to take care of the patients and feel awful about mistakes and do report that.
The majority. I mean, even I haven't met a nurse that did
great expense of themselves, right?
Yes, at a cost.
In the environment we're working in, I think to your point, is a lot more complicated, especially post-COVID and just the way technology's gone, the cost pressures, to where things have shifted since we were probably in nursing school, where sure, there's always been like the critical thinking aspect, but now it seems to be complicated by, well, what is really a good job that I checked off a bunch of boxes in the EMR, or that actually I taking really good care of that patient, and is the patient feeling that way as well? Because that's one thing I've noticed. This will definitely get us off topic. Is I just hate interacting with healthcare these days.
Right.
Like, I don't want to go to a doctor's appointment. I mean, even when it's pretty good, it's so frustrating. I wonder, how are these patients navigating this system in its current state? I think that kind of plays into this. I think do tend to set nurses potentially up for having worse outcomes, or setting themselves up for mistakes, or driving some of these issues as well, just in their approach to how they create the work environment. So before we dig into the work environment at your facility, Fred, So, Breanna, you chair the staffing committee.
Yeah.
Can you just list a couple of the highlights of the nurse staffing law?
Yeah.
That's unique to Oregon.
Ooh.
The staffing law I'm very passionate about. I love it. It's my bread and butter. The Oregon staffing law is one of the greatest, the strongest tools that we have to protect both nurses and patients. So at its core, the law is evidence-based. It reflects decades of research showing that safe nurse staffing improves patient outcomes.
Yes.
We've been saying this for a long time, which includes, fewer errors, lower mortality, shorter hospital stays, and it also improves nurse retention and reduces burnout. All of that from a staffing law, and that's studied. That is studied thoroughly for years and years. So instead of staffing decisions being made purely from the top down, the law puts nurses at the center through nurse-led staffing committees and enforceable staffing plans.
Yeah, because the law has mandated
Ratios.
base 4-to-1 ratios coming this summer, right?
Minimum
June.
wage ratios.
Yep.
And it's been 5-to-1.
Yeah.
And hospitals
med
have,
surg,
2 years to get it together to...
Yes.
Yeah, and
then
it
they
prescribes ratios like for L&D, ICU,
Yes.
units. So, but
Yeah.
but I just mean like in med surg in general.
Yeah, med
4-to-1
surg.
will be the standard.
For
Yes.
anybody who's still listening to this, who's not a nurse, when you're in a department where patients are spending a couple of days with you, that you pretty much could have the same 4 people or 5 people for your 3-day shift. Or maybe one goes home and you get a new one from surgery or whatever it is. It's pretty even keeled through the day and over day to day. But in a place like the ER, you get 3 ambulances pull up and it's mayhem. Mm-hmm. And you either prepare for that ahead of time or you're crushed. I mean, you can't have like a ratio and then have 3 ambulance backup,
Right.
and have 3 traumas and think it's going to just be fine.
Right. Right.
Well, on that note, so I mean, on social media, I have noticed quite a few nurses from your facility talking about what I presume are the very real staffing problems. Mm-hmm. And so my impression, I mean, there's been quite a few news stories coming out on Asante. There was a news story about retaliation against a nurse who had spoke up and was involved in the staffing committee. There's a lawsuit against the labor rep trying to ban them from being on site. There was another
Despite the federal law
ongoing litigation about the techs unionizing.
Yeah.
Not getting recognized years ago. That's ongoing. And then also my impression is they're being fined for violating the staffing law.
Yes, they have been.
And then the latest story I saw, which is consistent with what I've seen from nurses speaking out about online, is asking nurses to waive compensation.
Right.
And basically, if they're not willing to waive incentives for picking up extra or working extra, Asante's intentionally running units short. So when you have that kind of mayhem in the ER, I'm kind of curious how, because some of the text messages I've seen, so I'll just read one here. So tried to pick up tonight. They were 5 nurses short. They denied me. Staffing says we have to be short 6 RNs before they will grant consecutive pay for a nurse's shift, consecutive day pay. Yeah. And then another nurse, describes as, since we won't be bullied into signing a bullshit waiver as we ran our asses off with super high acuity patients on all floors, patients setting up bed alarms, lack of CNAs, being bullied by them. I don't think string cheese is going to fix everything. What a slap in the face. This was the CEOs and the executives.
Coming with,
rounded while...
expiring snacks from the kitchen.
Yeah, while running units short and asking nurses to, waive things that are not easy to get into a contract in the first place.
I was going to say, administrator waive a bonus or their own pay.
Yeah.
I've never seen that in my... Well, there's one guy up in Washington who took a pay cut during downturn at COVID to keep his people employed.
Okay.
Let's peel it all back a little bit. So post-COVID, we were quite short. And people are working short-staffed all the time. And the union and the administration got together and be like, how do we resolve this problem? And I'm like, look, at some price point, you're going to motivate people to give up their life and work more.
Reich's travel contracts had reached
travel
astronomical
contracts
rates.
were like
And that's
$300
nationwide.
an hour. And, let's just keep the money at home in the local economy and let's figure out a way to like make this better. And so we did. We came up with a series, and if it showed improvement, we either stuck with it, or if there was still a problem, we would just bid it up a little bit. It is also true that in this last contract, we have these two incentives called ASI and CNI. ASI is signing up way ahead of time and filling known holes in the schedule, so you're not scrambling around the day of. Mm-hmm. It also lets people plan their lives, so you pull from a greater number of people because they can plan ahead. ASI, and then day of incentive was called CNI, and we brought both those numbers down. We reduced them, like as part of a contractual back and forth.
It was a negotiation.
And we did that because truly it's really about not having to work short-staffed. Now, on my floor, there were times when you'd get two people, flu season, and 3 people would call out, and you were short-staffed, and there was nobody to come in. And that's all there was to it. And I'll do that. I'll grumble a little bit, but nurses will always step up and go above and beyond. You just don't want that to be the practice, right, so that the hospital is running short all the time, because running short means more for less, higher profitability. And it is not really driven to keep retaining nurses, keeping nurses healthy, keeping the stress levels down, and taking great care of patients.
And it's
I was just going to say, because what I'm seeing is text messages that the units are short.
Yeah.
You have these contract
people are willing to work.
That are meant to address that and incentivize people to pick up and fill those positions.
Yeah.
And you have the hospital essentially saying,
right,
no, we'll only let you work if you waive some of these incentives. And if you don't waive them, we don't care if you're ready and willing and able to work.
It's worse than that.
We're just going to run the unit short.
It's worse than that because
there's nothing you can do about it.
Right. They'll run your floor without a break nurse. So that means if you take a break, someone has to violate the staffing law and accept a ratio that's greater and above the law. Yep. The hospital doesn't sign some kind of like, it's on us. No, it's on your license.
Yes.
Every time. And they will bully you into not reporting missed meals and breaks, because you're ruining the budget. So you've got like internal pressure.
Do people actually believe that?
It doesn't matter what they believe.
Okay.
People are being bullied about saying
100%.
I missed a break or I missed my lunch.
There's a saying,
and we're short.
There's a saying in labor that the boss is the best organizer. And going back to last spring, it was, people just don't. They seem apathetic and not engaged. And I feel like Asante might be taking the trophy for being the best organizer.
They are putting torches and putting them every 3 feet along the runway and just leading people in. Like, it's
because I see nonstop engagement.
Unbelievable,
right?
Not even union leadership, but rank and file nurses saying, how do we work together to push back against these practices?
Yeah.
And I have tried to say, we could do a reset. I mean, everybody's kind of up in arms here, pointing fingers. We could do a reset, but they don't want to do shared governance. And what they don't understand is like the union is the nurses and the union are one and the same. We just have that role of representing. I'm just coming because they're complaining. This is not about me.
You represent them.
Yeah.
You're their advocate.
Want something done.
So truth or fiction?
Truth.
I heard that your CNO resigned or might have been let go recently. Is that true? Or am I making
Well, in the world of administration, when
they had family needs,
you're either how did you know that, Dan?
It's
amazing.
I'm always absorbing information about local nursing.
There's a lot
but that one I didn't fact check. So and, obviously if I worked there, I'd know if the CNO resigned or took a family
Julie Bowman is going to step away to take care of family and medical things.
And this sounded like...
Allegedly.
Okay, and it sounded to me, if my timeline's correct, that happened after nurses started organizing mass complaints to the Board of Nursing to investigate administrative nursing licenses?
Well,
based on these
first there
decisions?
Was, the long period of letting the regulatory body do their job. But bureaucratically... And I'm sorry, I don't mean to be critical of the OHA, but they get very bogged down in this bureaucratic process. And then you've got lawyers involved. And, they've gotten through the month of June in terms of like the complaints
of the
against
law.
Asante for violating the staffing law. What month is it now? Maybe they're in
February 2026.
So we are like months behind. And the hospital is arguing like we didn't do anything wrong, and they're going to lawyer it and kick the can down the road so it doesn't cost them any money, and they're going to go ahead and keep. So now that there's a recognized pattern and we're beginning to be able to gather data about policies such as you've got to be 6 nurses short before we'll pay the incentive.
Is that house-wide?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just...
that is now beginning to say that there's executive decision from the top down through leadership to let the hospital run short-staffed.
Yeah.
That is not only thumbing their nose at the staffing law, it feels a little bit like there's a licensure question and that those individuals need to be held responsible.
Yeah. This hits home. Several years ago, I was the staffing committee co-chair. And I served during a period where we had 7 or 8 CNOs turnover in literally like a 2-year period. And yeah, the bureaucracy, this was pre the enhanced organ staffing law. Things got so contentious. And yeah, there would be internal memos saying, oh, here's how we're actually going to staff the units, which was completely different from what they were. And it was so difficult. The only thing that held administration accountable was the nurses rising up en masse and pushing back.
Yeah.
And that still is really the only way. You have to create a care environment that's safe. And it's like they are very purposely not staffing their units appropriately. And we look at all this evidence that we have that like, I want to work, they're turning me away. Like, it's not like, yes, do we have the staffing law? Absolutely. But also you have all of these other regulatory agencies that we can report you to. And
I wonder, I mean, do they know what the end game is? Like, what do they expect to accomplish?
Yeah.
The end game for them is a monetary end game.
I mean, Providence spent how many hundreds of millions of dollars during the strike?
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I know when it's happening, they never think that the end game is going to go the way it is, but it almost seems like administration would benefit from like some kind of temperature probe that assesses like the likelihood of them losing by getting the temperature too hot of the nurse.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
because I feel like the thing's off the charts.
It's pretty.
It's on fire. It is on fire.
I mean, all right. I'm gonna just because knowing historically just at Providence how things go. Yeah. In my experience, you sufficiently piss people off enough, they outlast the administrators.
Back on January 2nd, in the first newsletter of the year, I had no choice but to call everyone to prepare for war because I don't see another way.
You laid it all out.
I mean, I will take every responsibility to not put people out on strike, but I don't see this going that way. And I've done 4 previous contracts, and I just don't see a way out of it.
It's hard to see them negotiating in good faith at this point when they
if you're violating the
commit
contract,
to the law or
they're suing ONA, and
they're not
doing all this stuff. It's pretty hard.
They're not doing anything in good faith currently.
Yeah.
I mean,
and I thought, am I not bargaining in good faith? And I'm like, well, we're not bargaining, so I haven't violated any of those rules either.
Right.
All I'm doing is saying, hey, everybody, this is serious. Be prepared.
Yeah.
No surprises.
As the chair, you have that, like, to prepare them, right, to get them out on the line, hopefully, but also protect them. Like, if you didn't think that it would go that way, and obviously we don't always know, but like, at least you're trying to prepare them, because in your opinion of doing this for so many years, like, it's not looking good.
It's not feeling
we
very
need better
collaborative.
Yeah.
And it's not feeling very
it's
respectful.
Not collaborative.
It's not respectful of, like, both the contract and the nurses. And I think when you do that to people,
I mean,
eventually they just get up in arms. They just get upset and angry.
I think a good reminder is that every time, you work short staff, every time these nurses' license are at risk, like Asante is I will say purposely putting their nurses' license at risk. And and that is something that each nurse needs. You get one license.
And if your manager is like, hey, budget is tight, let's just go back to the buddy system. And you're like, wait a minute.
You should say no.
The buddy system is illegal, and you say no. And they're like, but you're going to do it.
No.
Where is the liability? What I say is put it in writing.
Yes.
Put it in writing.
And that's actually where you can escalate up to where you can turn, where the OSBN comes into play. Yeah. Because there is a duty as a nurse manager. The duty is all of the nurses on the floor. Yeah. Like that is their job to keep the patient safety. Like, if you look it up, it's very clear. So
I think not only are the nurses being disrespectful, but the nurse managers are also under tremendous pressure. And I think some of them have one of 3 choices. They can quit. They can go along with what they're being told, or, they can report and be fired.
Just want to clarify one thing. You said the nurses are being disrespectful or being disrespected?
Disrespected.
Okay.
And I think
the
nurse managers are also...
Lest anyone
I mean, the nurse managers don't have a lot of leeway either. This is top down.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Extreme pressure.
Yeah. I mean, on that note, I've been surprised at the amount of strike activity. I mean, right now, I believe, as we're recording this, Kaiser nurses are on strike. Mm-hmm. There was another legacy strike with advanced providers in the Portland area recently, coming off the major strikes last year. And then also New York is actively on strike. And, we're seeing health systems reacting to cost cuts and decreased reimbursement, increasing healthcare costs. Yeah. And locally, we're seeing the repercussions of that. Asante closed the most of Ashland Community Hospital, right? The med-surg, the labor and delivery. Yeah. We're seeing consolidations.
No inpatient there.
Side. And I'm just curious, looking forward. I mean, obviously, nurses, because we're unionized, we do have protections, the ability to push back. Yeah. But I don't believe the majority of nurses are unionized. So how do you think nurses push back effectively?
Well, you either organize or you organize. I mean, there's no other way around it.
Basically, you have to stand up for yourself, and you just have to keep doing that, even though it's scary.
Hey,
but
work for
you do it.
States.
Yeah. You're non-unionized, right? But you still have all your coworkers and like, you're on the floor and you have your floor nurses and hopefully you still, I know other places we had shared governance, right?
Are you talking about like Wisconsin?
I'm actually talking.
Work non-union?
I worked in North Carolina, non-union at Duke University.
North
Yeah, and I had a great experience there. I didn't have any issues there. I had a good relationship with my manager. She was very understanding and kind. But the only way it's organizing, right? Hey guys, we're all having this issue. Let's go to, our manager
let's work through it
together and say, we collectively, you have to go in groups and say, this isn't working for us, right? Like everyone, and they can't get rid of all of you.
Yeah, even if you're non-union, you can still advocate collectively.
You have to, yeah. You should.
Still protected by the ANA Code of Ethics and professional standards. Likely your State Practice Act.
Yes.
But collectively standing up and speaking, that is the heart of what a union is. Mm-hmm. This is all of us organized around within, and being led by an organization and organized to like stand up for what's right in nursing and for patient care.
I mean, why do we have such a great staffing law?
Yeah.
Because
we demand
multiple.
Because we demand it.
Yes. Yeah.
Why do we have good pay? Because we demand it.
And that was nurses. Nurses.
They don't come forward and be like, hey, you know what?
Right.
You guys seem pretty cool. Let's give you more money.
There's no free handouts. There's no free handouts ever.
The nursing profession has a long history of kind of avoiding the financial side of things as far as reimbursement goes. And so now we find ourselves in a situation where we're one of the highest cost centers at pretty much any organization, right?
Okay, but hold on.
Also seen as not
now
bringing...
I'm air quoting.
Not being seen as bringing in revenue, right?
Right.
And then also... Yeah,
but we know what the
climate
truth
where
is.
Funding's decreasing and it's already crazy expensive.
We know the truth is that the hospitals and the administration and all these people are selling what? Physician and nurse care. Those are the only two products they have to offer. That's why people are in the building. So we are not their biggest expense. We're their most valuable resource. And they need to understand that. You're welcome. Fred for president.
So looking forward, what are some
2028?
So what are some ways that nurses can be more involved to inspire positive change in the facilities and better working environments and promoting better patient care in the current climate we find ourselves in?
We need to just advocate for patients, and we need to have our patients understand what's really going on. And we need to get into the arena as expert witnesses to the world we live in and get involved in the political spectrum and in that discussion. We need to be educated about all these things and not just let people with an MBA have the microphone all the time, because they only see it from one perspective, which is like their profit margin and their expense thing. That's why they look at nurses and say, we're their greatest expense. And I'm like, no. We're your most valuable resource.
Breanna, what do you think?
I think that involvement doesn't have to look the same for everyone. And sometimes I think that people think that it does, right? Like you don't have to go to Salem and do, testify for a hearing for something to be involved or to make a difference, at all. I mean, you can make a difference in locally, and actually
like small changes can be effective.
Yeah, small changes, committees, and like in advocating, and also I think whatever committee you're on, like really dive deep into what that committee is all about. If it's a union-based committee, talk to your union, because there's a reason that we have certain seats on certain committees.
So making sure you're informed.
Yes.
When you're serving in a committee that has potential to have influence or make a decision.
Yeah. And I think that, and make sure you're on the right side of it, which is advocating for the nurses and not just doing whatever your manager says you should do, which does happen a lot.
I will say, in my time as staffing committee co-chair, it really cemented in my mind the importance of having prescribed ratios, because the amount of effort, the power imbalance, I think that feeling that Breanna's describing, at the end of the day, like 40 hours a week isn't spent controlling the structure of the work environment.
Right.
When we're coming into staffing committee, it's often 2 hours a month or 2 hours every 3 months. You can be powerful there, but the advantage is stacked against you just from the amount of time you spend at the committee versus the amount of time the other side has to make decisions and control things 24/7.
Right.
I mean, obviously nurses can push back, but
we do.
The ratios removes that power imbalance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it's so much simpler, and it's not perfect, but it is an important component.
Yes.
And this staffing committee also serves because, a ratio doesn't solve every issue either. So there's still plenty to be done, right?
Yes. But, and I'm sure this will not surprise you in any way, shape, or form, but even with the ratios that are very clear in the law and the change coming up in June, there are some units that, even though they go to the 4-to-1 ratio, which mind you, that is evidence-based. And I mean, look it up. I mean,
it's the law.
It's the law, but it's
are you suggesting there might be forces at work trying to find a workaround to that 4-to-1?
Weird, right?
That basic math.
So, but they're basically, it's...
I know it says 4-to-1, but I don't think they mean 4-to-1.
Well, let's
right, that's not what the law meant.
Interpret what 4-to-1 really means.
It means 4-to-1.
Because our hospital has made statements about, we don't interpret the law that way.
Right.
What other way?
And I'm like, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but it's pretty clear.
If you find bedside nurses would just sign this waiver, it wouldn't matter what the law says.
Right. Give up your contract, right? So, yeah.
All right. Well, let's wrap up here. I'm foreseeing this is going to wind up being a 2-part.
Oh, really?
Okay.
2-part episode, yeah.
Are we going to do the next part?
We have a lot of...
2-minute smoke break.
We already did part 2.
Yeah. He's going to split this up. But we have lots of thoughts.
Yeah. Well, any last thoughts?
Mine is that nursing is very challenging work. And none of this is easy, leadership, nursing. But progress happens when nurses stay engaged, they support each other, and work together toward, shared goals. And you have to stick, truly, I feel you have to stick together. I've seen it on a strike line, and I see it for, we're going to stick together and, throughout the state of Oregon for our healthcare and our patients. And so that's what gives me hope.
Yeah.
Stick together.
Nice.
And I would say
can't believe you're going to give this guy the last word.
Oh, I know. I should have waited.
I purposely let her go first.
Fred. I'm recording. I'm recording you to someone. I don't know.
Oh, good.
I'm just kidding.
So manipulative.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't forget to advocate for your coworkers who aren't nurses. They're an important part of your team that really contribute greatly to patient care. And don't let the organizations you work for pit you against each other. It shouldn't be like one or the other. The nurses win and everybody else loses, and then everybody, hates nurses. And that's how they'll try to manipulate the story around what's really happening. Do get involved, and just remember, when we collectively stick together, we have the power to make change. And try to bring yourself into your workplace with great purpose of patient care. Like, it's a really great profession. It's challenging, but it's rewarding also.
Yeah. Well,
I recommend it.
Appreciate that thought. I recommend nursing too. It could be a challenging job, but definitely worth it. Good profession. Well, thank you both for coming on today.
Thanks for hosting us.
Thank you.
It's been amazing. Right. You're going to go out with a guitar solo? No.
Not this time.
Not this time, dang it.
I'll maybe when I interview Broadway Phil.
Yes.
A couple updates on some of the topics that we covered in today's episode. So nurse Danny Schofield, the ICU nurse who was accused of swapping fentanyl with non-sterile tap water, is set for trial in September of 2026. She has pled not guilty. Asante has reportedly settled the majority of lawsuits arising from patient harm associated with that case. Asante's lawsuit against the Oregon Nurses Association was dismissed, which sought to ban the union rep from being on their property. They have the right to be on the property again. ONA has since sued for alleged wage theft against Asante. Asante led a charge in the Oregon State Legislature to overturn Oregon's landmark staffing law. Their efforts were defeated earlier this year. Breanna actually offered public testimony in support of the law. Asante has since set up an online portal called Asante Impact, which serves as a PR portal for their perspective. Also includes a tracker and a tally of the staffing fines that they are facing, which they explain are, quote, penalties issued against Rogue Regional Medical Center for OHA's misinterpretation of the staffing law, end quote. And we should mention here that the Oregon Health Authority, OHA, is the state regulator tasked with enforcing the state's staffing law. The Asante nurses continue to prepare for contract negotiation. The Asante techs and non-nurses who actually won their union election 3 years ago are still not being recognized by Asante. They are starting a campaign to actually get Asante to start negotiating with them so they can get a first contract. They have won multiple appeals, and Asante has issued plans to lay off another 300 employees and shut down their local surgery center, citing cost pressures and regulatory burden. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Leave us a review and take advantage of our free ANCC courses. Links are in the show notes. Until next time, take care.